Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here and to introduce the 4 artists on our panel, 4 artists from Africa and the African Diaspora. We have Ayana Jackson, who divides her time between Brooklyn and Johannesburg, and in her work interrogates the archives as a means of creating new systems of knowledge. We have Lebohang Kganye, who is based in Johannesburg and featured in the South African Pavilion this year, and works with photo albums as a means of thinking about how they function as archives and serve to create identity. We have Laetitia Kai, who is based in the Ivory Coast, and I would say performs her hair as a way of animating discourses on a range of issues, such as the Me Too movement, for example, gender equality, gun violence, so on and so forth. And finally, we have Raquel, who is based in Amsterdam and works as a mixed media artist, creating these really dense, beautiful works on burlap with oil and charcoal, resin, so on and so forth, as a way of exploring race and identity. And they will be in conversation with Gio, who is the co-founder of African Arts Dialogue, and myself. I'm an assistant professor at the University of Arkansas, exploring contemporary African arts. So with that, I'll turn the floor to Gio, who will provide an introduction for us.
Thank you, Janine, and a big, huge thank you to each one of the women on this fantastic panel and to all of you for joining us today. It's really an honor and a humbling experience to be opening this inquiry. We really feel this is a drop into a huge water of conversations that need to happen on the topic. You can see in the title of the panel, we chose to highlight the gender aspect in all the multiplicity of ingredients that comes with gender and identity construction. So race, non-binary gender identities, sexual orientation, socioeconomic background. So everything that has to do with constructing an identity and gender is also part of this conversation. We also like to see this conversation as part of a multi-generational journey. So we are mindful of the women that have come before us and how they've paved the way for many of us, or how they can inspire new way of leading and really fighting for a more equal system in the leadership sphere. And last but not least, a little contextualization of how we like to interpret the word leadership. Leadership can both be a position of power and a movement, a practice. So often we tend to link the word leadership with a traditional position of power, which comes with, of course, opportunities, challenges, and responsibilities. But there is also a different notion of leadership, which is more related to changing something, so to moving something. And today we would really like to bring both dimensions into the conversation. So both the positional aspect, which had some important gender aspect to it, but also the being part of a bigger wave, bigger movement. And talking of which, we would really like to take a moment to honor our ancestors, our women ancestors, the women that have inspired us, that have held the path so far. And so if you wouldn't mind showing the presentation, we have put together some of the women that, yeah, not just ancestor, I'm reminded, of course, it's also women who currently are holding us and making us feel that this is a worthwhile journey. And so my invitation is now to take a moment, stand up. We've all had lunch, so maybe it's good to activate the body and really connect with those women that have inspired you, have challenged you, have contributed something to your practice, and bring them here with us. And with this, we hope that this conversation will expand beyond the limit of this room and this time. And Janine, please lead us into the first question.
So our first question relates to this idea of mentorship. In our pre-panel conversations, we spent a lot of time, as Gio was addressing, talking about the fact that in order to generate systemic change, this requires multiple generations. So we've been thinking a lot about that. And my question to our panelists is, what mentors have inspired you? What forms of mentorship have inspired you? And as a second part to that question, how has this shaped your approach to mentorship, both thinking about mentorship and enacting mentorship? So I leave it to you, who would like to start the conversation.
I have to, oh, we're here. Thank you. First of all, I want to say thank you to all of the panelists and for the invitation, and to the African Art in Venice Forum, Neri, and the entire team. You're doing incredible work, and so I just wanted to first say thank you. Mentorship has always, been essential to me, because they say that if you don't know where the horizon is, you can't see beyond it. Or you can't expand it. The women, the people that have come before me to show me what's possible has helped me to actually frame how I move. And when things moved in the direction with me with regard to art, where I had something of value to share, I began mentoring, and I currently mentor a young artist, and not young, well, she's young, but she's a full-grown human, Pumzile Kganye, and she was working with the Market Photo Workshop. And when I started to work with her, it was interesting to really be able to help her to kind of navigate some of the things that I had to kind of learn on my own. So the beauty of mentorship is actually seeing how you can help a person to leapfrog, or help a person to navigate something. So I think it's essential. And I think that also some people I consider to be my mentors who I don't have an actual relationship with, meaning I don't speak to them all the time, but I follow them, I listen to them. I like anytime there's something that's offered, whether it's online or the like, I study them. And I think that we have a lot of mentors that are, that's another form of mentorship.
So I've had mentorships in sort of different capacities. So in terms of, when I was a student, also coming from the Market Photo Workshop, the people that, the trainers that come from that space have remained really instrumental in my practice. And we've sort of carried on that relationship. I think that a large part of my professional practice has been influenced by that relationship. I think that being able to have conversations around a proposal, review it, have feedback, have feedback also about how you ought to challenge yourself or your practice or the themes that you're dealing with a bit more is what I've appreciated, I think, around mentorship. And I think that's really stayed with me. And I think that it's also, become more than, than even like a sort of mentorship. And, at this point, it's more like a friendship and a peer sort of relationship. And so I think that, every time as a sort of, as an artist or as like an emerging or an established artist, those terms, like I think people don't want to sort of say that they are being mentored or that they, that they have women that that sort of, that they go on that journey with. I think that the association with mentorship is always seen as, like you're underneath someone and someone is like bringing you up. But I think it can sort of continue to take on a different shape, and it can become like a peer relationship. And that's what I've experienced, I think, with a lot of the women that I've met over the years, whether through academia or through sort of professional encounters, different experiences, or even really through like fun or adventurous sort of encounters, where we're able to, whether it's people that come from a literary background and I'm like a photographer, but we're able to really find a bridge between our practices and how we carry that through.
Absolutely beautiful. And also peer coaching. It's maybe, the new way of calling this.
So hi everyone, I'm very honored to be here and thank you to be here. And me, when I get asked this type of question, like what woman inspire me, I love to give flowers all the time to my mom and my little sister. That's the most important. I think, yes. I think family is the most important, and my relation with my mom and my sister is the first example of women supporting women that I had that really shaped the person and the artist I am today. With my mom, well, I think our first mentor in life in general are our parents. She taught me a lot of value, love, and hardworking, being strong, and stand for myself, but also in a society, because in Ivory Coast we are a lot into gender role. They're telling us since I'm a little child that women are supposed to be in the kitchen, they're supposed to to be there to serve their men. But when my two parents split, I saw my mom go to the work, make money. So when someone was there and telling me, no, a woman should do that, I had another example at home. And I was able to know that a woman has no limits. She can do absolutely everything. So that was my first, inspiration to be the woman I am today. And then there is my little sisters. When it comes to mentorship, we have the tendency to think that maybe the mentor needs to be older because the mentor have more experience and is supposed to teach something. But that little woman teach me so many things. I struggle a lot with anxiety, and in the early part of my career, my artistic career, I had a lot of ups and down and a lot of down, because in Ivory Coast, it's very hard to be an artist. It's very hard to make a living being an artist only there. You have to be international if to want to make a living there. There is not a lot of opportunity. And when I decided to be an artist, a lot of people told me it was a terrible idea. I was studying business management. I didn't like it. And when I stopped studying, everyone was against me. But I just say, no, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be an artist. I decided it. But like, I start and there is no opportunity. There is nothing. And I'll start doubting myself. I'm like, okay, did I make the right choice? So I was sometime at some place where I was always crying, doubting myself, asking myself, like, what should I do next? Maybe they were right. Maybe I should have just continued studying business management and have a normal office job. And maybe they were right because I don't see any type of like of career. Like I have no opportunity. And at those moments, my little sister was the person that was always holding my hand to tell me, continue to do what you have to do. The universe will do the rest. Just be patient. So those two women are just my biggest mentor in life. And they continue to be my biggest mentor. So outside of my family, I'm inspired by lots of women, but to not be too long, I'm gonna just talk about two women. First of all, there is Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. She is a Nigerian author, feminist, very well known, and I admire her. I'm a feminist activist too. I do a lot of activists online and I use my heart to address all those issues. And one thing I really love about her is the way she always stands by what she said. You know, when we are in a world where we're trying to bring change, but there is also this thing, this cancel culture where the change we want to make, we just want to create a new normal. Like we have to forget everything we know before to create a new normal. But like, even if inclusivity is important, I do believe that it's also normal to have some people have their safe place. And when it comes to feminism, we love to speak about gender equality, but there is a group of feminists that love to speak about equality of sexes, and I'm among them. And it's very controversial when you say, no, I'm fighting for equality of sexes, not for gender equality. Because where I come from, the oppression is more based on the way I'm built. By my biology, there is female genital mutilation, there is things like breast ironing. This is directly based on my body. So I prefer to be on this side, and there is a lot of backlash. She also received one of those backlash, but she handled it perfectly. So yes, I believe in being accountable and not spreading hate, but I also believe in critical conversation. And I think there is a place for every type of how to say that, of point of view if it's expressed respectfully. So that's why I love her that much. And a last woman I would love to give flowers to is the huge pop star Rihanna. Everyone see the pop star, but like I follow her and I identify a lot to her because after the pop star, I see a woman that come from nothing and that was able to realize so many things. She had a very modest background and now she's a superstar. And I just think about myself. I just start with my smartphone in my bedroom, trying to create some things, put my smartphone on my bed to take the picture myself and then post it. I started with nothing. Now I have the chance to have a big team to help me grow my career, but I really start with nothing. And now I know that I have no limits. There is also the fact that she's very polyvalent. She's doing everything. She acts, she dances, she sings. She is a businesswoman in makeup, in fashion, and I'm a little like that too. And when I say when I say that, because when I say to people, I'm an actress, but I also have a book, but I'm an artist too. And I love fashion. I do my own clothes. They're like, oh, you have to focus on one thing, or you're not gonna succeed anywhere, because it's always very difficult to succeed in one field. So imagine being successful in 5 different things. So seeing her being successful in all those things, it just amazed me, and it's made me understand that I can do it too. So yeah, that's a little bit that. And also, just a last thing, like she mentioned in the beginning, she talked about ancestors. I wasn't supposed to talk about that now, but like I want also to say that I was inspired for my heart when I saw a photo album of women in West Africa before colonization and the hairstyle. So basically, I've been inspired by my ancestors. So yeah, I want to give them flowers too. Thank you.
Hi. So for me, a role model, I started a research like 4 years ago. And I have to tell you a little bit of my story before I start to talk about this research. I'm Colombian born, live in the Netherlands, and I was adopted. So for more than, let's say, 15 years, I never had a role model that actually looked like me, talked like me, and had the same emotions like me. So I never had the experience for a very long time until I went back to Colombia and I started all of a sudden to realize that people look like me, dance like me, smile like me, have the same emotions like me. And also the understanding of a role model, what it was. Also the understanding of a family, how important family could be for one another. So I actually got sort of familiar with that kind of feeling, with that kind of emotion. And years and years later, I started, when actually my adopted mother passed away, I went back to my roots. I went back to Colombia and I started to do a research on women. And not just any women, but women in Colombia that are called by female social leaders. So the thing is, in Colombia, what's happening now is that a lot of women, after many, many years of civil wars, fights, a lot of killings, are actually trying to help their own community to get back on their feet. But because of politics, a lot of women are not allowed to. So probably you have a mayor from whatever kind of party in your town and he doesn't want you to succeed. So he comes a couple of times, or he sends some people to your door to tell you not to do what you're doing. For example, to put light in your streets so it's safer for women, to send young girls to schools so they can have a good education, or to just help people to work on the land. You're not allowed to do that for many times. So what happens if they tell you too many times you're not allowed to do it, they can kill you. So a lot of women actually are getting killed in Colombia because they're actually helping their community to get back where they were before. And it's shocking that it's never on the news. We never hear about this, but it's happening daily, on a daily basis. So I started to talk with some friends of mine in Bogota, and they still have a beautiful organization called Ayana. And Ayana is helping these women via art, via music, via dance, to actually come together as a community, talk about it. And they gave me a list with 100 names. Like, these women, these are the main women in Colombia you have to talk about. And they're like grassroots projects. Even maybe just the mother living on the corner who's taking care of all the babies in the neighborhood. So I went there and I just started to do interviews. I went there with a camera. And a friend of mine, she started to be my assistant, sort of, / translator. And instead of just a couple of weeks, it took me almost a year to talk with every single one. And everybody gave me another list of 100 people, so I also wanted to talk with them. And I also wanted to talk with them. So in the end, I just stay around in Colombia. I was learning a lot about myself, but especially about motherhood and about really extremely strong women. Women who went to high school when they were 80, so they could actually start to read and write. Women who were fostering and taking care of refugees. Refugees who were taking care of refugees. Like everything, you name it. Like, we are so spoiled here in the West. But there was one lady in Cali, and she actually, with her own bare hands, she started to dig in her street because there was no light, there was no like normal floor to walk on. And she wanted to make her neighborhood safe, and this neighborhood was notorious because there were a lot of drug addicts. Actually, all the men there were like drug addict or dealer. And she started to build, and then she put some light up, and she found some whatever system to connect it to. And then the neighbors was seeing the same thing, so they started to help. And all of a sudden, the whole neighborhood, even the junkies, were helping her to actually stabilize the neighborhood. And now walking through it, it's a beautiful neighborhood, beautiful like sidewalks with a park where children can play, and there's light. So for women only, it's so much safer, because going out at night and dark, it's like a no-go. You cannot do it, or you get killed, raped, or whatever. So all of a sudden, you see families walking with their children in the parks, left ice, like somebody's buying ice after 8. It's beautiful. And also, like the city actually noticed what she's doing. So now her project is like a project that's like now all happening around the city. And I was talking with one of the guys who used to be one of the junkies and the dealers who was sitting actually on the corner. And he told me like, yeah, she was always saving money. So she could actually give us a bus ticket, and she always took us to the main bus station, like the central bus station in town. And she did it with all the guys over there, all the people who were living on the street or were like addicted or whatsoever. Because for the first time, these people could encounter other people who actually had a job, actually went on their way to see her girlfriend, like people who were dressed up in suits. And that actually changed for many, many people their lives, only that bus ticket. So the importance to be a mentor, it's not actually even like teaching, like really being active, but just a small gesture to change somebody's life. And all these people working now for her to do the same thing with all these people in the rest of the neighborhood. So it's also like an action-reaction thing. Like we have to be careful what we do, what we say to one another, because you never know what will change in their life. So yeah.
Thank you so much for that. One thing I'm taking away from this conversation is that mentorship can take many forms, that we oftentimes think about mentors as being people who have succeeded in our fields, but you know, mentors can be important family members. We've also learned that they might be people that we know, but oftentimes not. They're people who we've watched on television or read or quoted. And a very important point, they don't necessarily need to be older than us, that the younger generation can serve as mentors as well. And of course, you know, that this resonates in real life, that this has impact, that this mentorship has impact. So thank you so much for that. I hope we can hold on to that for the Q&A. Gio, do you want me to turn it back to you for the second question? Thank you.
Sure. So thank you again. And I love this notion of, you know, the giving and receiving aspect of mentorship, which is leadership in actual terms. I mean, this it's a bit of a tricky question, but I'm sure you all feel it in the room. Obstacles are still there for women leading, and whether these are systemic barriers, stereotypes, or just blockage to this free movement, free expression of how we want to lead as women in the multiple ways we would like to lead. So the question is really around what challenges, barriers, obstacles you have either personally observed or observed other women in the creative African sector experiencing, and what has inspired you about the way they have faced or you have faced such challenges. So it's a double question. It's what are the barriers and the obstacles, but also what are the potential or the opportunities that we can tap into to free ourselves from them.
So as we talked earlier about what we would be discussing today, that question resonates with me quite a bit because I'm currently in the process of creating an artist residency program in Johannesburg. And it's intentionally not international. It's intentionally for South and Southern African, and really for now South African artists, because there's, as you were saying, there's, if you, oftentimes there are no opportunities at home, and if you're lucky enough to get an opportunity away, then things can get started, but there aren't enough things for people that are just like a few miles away in Soweto or in, the East Rand or like other parts of South Africa. And I realized that just through living and working in South Africa. But what was funny, not funny, but an unexpected aspect of creating this initiative, which is why I've now pushed out my official launch. I mean, I've hosted about 4 artists by now, but is that my current artist in residence is a mother. And she's it's Kganye, who I mentioned earlier, who I've been mentoring for several years since she was at the Market Photo Workshop. As her exhibition, so she received an award, and that award came with mentorship, which is how I became her official mentor. And I engaged with her throughout the process of her creating her first exhibition, Plastic Crowns. While at the reception, not at the reception exactly, but like as it was launching, she finds that she's pregnant. And very horrifically, she actually came to apologize to me. And I don't want to speak her story, but I feel I can say that. And I was like, why would you apologize? As a woman who hasn't carried, as a woman who might have postponed parts of my life that would have brought a family to me, I was like, no, this is a blessing, and so you should not be ashamed. I've heard even like Lauryn Hill, like lots of women at the peak of their success find themselves carrying, and then are told like, what have you done? Your career is over. And there's actually not truth to that, but it is always going to be something that can take you out of your process, and the journey back to it. Some women, too many women, don't manage. So in creating the residency, obviously I reached out to her, and I asked if she wanted to do it. I said, Azania is welcome to come, and your partner or whomever can come. And then the long story short is that her gallerist was kind of slightly frustrated that she hadn't received anything in about 3 or 4 years. And then the artist is like, well, like me just getting the headspace, the mental space to do it is, I'm only just now, because she's like walking, talking, and semi-functioning on her own, able to even consider like giving you new work, because my priorities are different. So, and then in the process of her doing that, I realized that I needed to help, or we had to cross another channel of childcare, right? Because even though one can bring another caregiver to help, I'm not blessed to be a mother, but mothers face a lot of challenges that if you don't have children, you kind of don't realize. I'm like, oh yeah, bring your kid, and then I'm just like, oh, wait, like just having space is not enough for that. Just having the child there is not enough. Like she still has to carve out a way to get several hours out of the day to work. You know what I mean? And I think that that's a big challenge. And I think primary caregivers in general, obviously I'm slightly more concerned with women, but I also know I was raised by my father. My mother was around, but she was gone several days out of the week because of her work schedule. She was a flight attendant. So I lived with my father several days out of the week. So even for fathers, but primary caregiving is something that can distract you from your work. And I think spaces need to be created, and thinking about women and as a feminist, like we need to be more thoughtful about how to care for women who are caring for children, and also like working with their practice. So yeah.
Okay. So for me, one of the biggest obstacles creative women are facing in the fields is sexual harassment. And this is crazy. I know so many women, so many friends that will tell me, oh, to have this role, the director asked me to be nice to him, or to be able to exhibit here, he asked me this or that, or when I came to his room, to his office, he tried to touch me here. And this is so unfortunate because women are so creative, but the people that are able to give them the opportunity to express themselves, instead of seeing the creative mind, they see the body they can take advantage of. And actually it's such a big obstacle, and we see that a lot in the media. Sometimes there is a lot of big scandal in Hollywood and in a lot of different fields. And I feel like what we can do to overcome that is really to have the courage to speak. This is the first step for every type of change. It's very scary. Sometimes we feel like, oh, we have no power, we have no influence, and this guy is a big guy, he has money, he has this, he has that. But if we never speak, those issues will never stop. So we always have to have the courage to speak. Yeah.
Going back to your story, and we actually were talking about this a little bit earlier as well, about motherhood and also the decision to actually getting a baby. And I was just telling them, like, I'm working on a big project for 2025, and the idea was to have a couple of paintings of 10 by 10. So I will be working in the studio for 12 hours a day and 7 days a week. So I had to postpone the idea to be a mother at least for 3 years. And normally that wouldn't be a problem, but all of a sudden this is a decision I make. It's not a choice, like it's something I can't do. And then I was asking them, like, why does it feel, or how did it come to a point that I think my painting is more important than a child? And there's something in the system self already, something also in me probably that thinks it's more important, a painting over a child, but also the system thinks, or my career thinks, or something thinks that I have to put my family, my future, my everything, my yeah, on hold. So I actually want to ask the panel as well, like, what do you guys think of this? And also the public, like, how does it come that this is more important than?
Yeah. No, that's, I mean, it's great. It's great. I mean, I'll be 45 in a few weeks, and you know, I've put some systems in place. I went through the process of freezing my eggs. I put systems in place to try to ensure that I was going to be able to be a mother. But, you know, to be vulnerable, at one point I even had someone that I was planning to do it with. And I hate to say this, but like, the Smithsonian exhibition came up and I had to like work on my thing. And I'm like, I was like, dude, you can't cut, because I have to, my eggs are in South Africa and he's in New York. And like, and then, you know what I'm saying? And then his schedule got crazy. So we just never got the sperm and the egg together. And, and now he's like all having a baby with someone else, which is also fine. But I legitimately postponed it, and you know, like I'm okay with the decisions that I've made in my life, but it's for the first time I'm realizing that I might not carry, and it's sad in its own way, but it's also a set of choices that I've made, which is fine, and the story's not over, the eggs are still there. But the thing is, but you know what I mean. But the thing is, like, somehow it's almost like, because we're on a clock. I mean, technically we can carry until whenever, as long as we figure out how to get it in the uterus. But like, you know what I'm saying, after you stop, you know, having eggs. But legitimately women are on a clock with regard to those things. So, you know what I mean? Like, and I was shocked about it because the most of the women successful artists I know, Carrie Mae Williams, Simone Lee, they've had their children early, and then there were others like Wangeshi and others who had their children, I wouldn't say late, but like closer to like in their later 30s, and then there are some of us who just never got around to it, And I think there's a systemic issue, as you know, and we need to figure it out, which is why I have, like, my residency thing is now delayed and launched, because I want to like give it the care the necessary, because there's a super need. Like, the more I tell people, the more, whether it's a gallerist, whether it's a mother, whether it's, they're just like, yeah, like, it's 5-6 years. Like, the art world won't wait 5-6 years for you. It just won't.
I think
Or should.
I'm keeping the conversation as it's going, but I think the question that I have, as we think around sort of systems and sort of personal decisions and how those affect sort of your career and your practice, you know, I think I've been in a moment where I've been thinking more and more around sort of and like independent practice and sort of different structures and systems, which could possibly not alleviate certain problems, but perhaps yes, you know, because of the, you know, it's like having those systems in place that allow you to take those sort of 3 years that you need for, you know, for whatever, so for personal decisions or for like a big project, where you've just put enough support in place. But it obviously takes a while, because it takes a lot of resources. It takes you really being able to have a sort of solid professional practice, and, you know, and a structure, and it takes you being able to also be very present to put a structure in place, because it is about more than just having the money to put a structure in place. And so I think that I'm at a point where, as I'm thinking around, you know, being able to have the space for such decisions, like having a child, that, you know, I feel like these are the years where I need to make those sorts of decisions, you know, because my practice is very much an independent practice, even though there's like collaborations with institutions, but having my own structure in place has always been important, and being able to like find a different way of working that works for me and that's healthy for me has always been important. You know, and so I think that for me, I think that that's sort of where my headspace is at. It's like before I can make big personal decisions, because there's actually so much of this, you know, this baby. I think, like, you know, with you starting a residency, which then becomes like its own baby. It's like, because then there's actually so many sort of administrative nightmares or administrative things that need to be put in place, you know, learning how to get sponsorship beyond a project, learning how to run like operational costs and dealing with all of those sorts of things. That I don't, you know, that for me, I think that this is really, I think in this moment, this is when I'm thinking more and more around sort of, besides independent practice, but independent practice as a woman. And so I think that this is, you know, and I'm like, is it different? So it's like, I think I'm not answering the question, because I'm still trying to figure out whether it's more difficult to have an independent practice or a predominantly independent practice as a woman, versus as a man. So yeah, I didn't answer, but
I had this conversation with some male friends, also male artists, and they're doing really great, but also making babies. They just have like 5-6 babies everywhere.
I know.
Sorry,
Like,
but no, but really, and then you're like, how do you
And
do
you're in
that?
Venice.
And they are like, yeah, they're drinking, chilling, they're in Venice, they're just like going around, women, more babies. Yes, 6 now, I think.
No,
But
guys.
hey, they know.
I
If
can't
you
even
watch.
get one out. Like, how are you doing several?
No, but then the conversation is like, how do you manage? And they like, yeah, I leave the baby with the mother.
Obviously.
And then it's like silent. I'm like, okay, so what do I do? And they're like, yeah, you can. And they're like, oh, because they don't understand that, like, most of the time these women are also artists and they leave their career for the baby. And they just go on and just be whatever. And they're great. They're really great. And I like, well deserved. But the decision for a woman to stay with a child and for men to stay with a child, and like, lucky you have your dad. But for most men, it's not the same. So I think also there lays the conversation. But also like you want to take care, you want to have your house, you want to have like your career built because you want to be independent on your own. But it's also the partner.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah.
It's an issue. It's a whole
Come in.
issue.
Now it's time for question. Yes. Can we have?
The microphone's coming.
Yeah, I see like some.
I'm gonna just say two things that I was thinking about in the past months, years, and now listening to you. The first one is, how is it that, because we are the first that think it's either, right? And because it's cultural and there is this judgment connected also to the fact that if the father leaves the son with the mother, it's okay. But if the mother leaves the son with the father, it's a really terrible mother, like, besides being not good at what she does. And so how is it that we can force ourselves to think that, yes, we can fight to change things, you know, people don't want us to work and we will work and we will fight drug dealers and we are gonna create communities. And how come that we are not able, first inside us, to fight this, I don't know, dichotomy. Yeah. And the second consideration is something that I think is related, but I've been seeing recently, 8 March was the, you know, Women Celebration Day, and I've seen a lot of men celebrating how wonderful women who give birth, and there's a lot of celebration also of rights or traditions that kind of honor so much the woman carrying that they put her somewhere where she's like a goddess and she's isolated, and then yes, it's like a collective vision that traps us, and then maybe we should be more. Sometimes I think I want to scream when I see this, because I don't want to be put there stuck somewhere where I cannot talk to anyone and consider the goddess. I'm not a goddess, I'm not perfect. I want to, you know, do things and not just be considered because I am a mother, which I will never be, by the way, because I got to the same point and I'm 50 now and that's it.
Yeah.
So
I think
that
we just
was
have to put structures in place, you know, not to take up too much of the talk, but, you know, like I said, I only realized by inviting the child into the residency that I had to do even more than just invite the child or offer the chance to have the child with them. But like all kinds of things, you know, you should be able to go to the art fair or the Biennale and like without the nanny situation, you know what I mean? Like, meaning what I mean by that is just that, like, yes, there are people who are privileged enough to like bring their children to these events and to these things, but usually there's like another caregiver, like in the form of like a nanny. But what if I can't afford a nanny, but I still need to show up, I still need to have a talk, you know, I still need to do something. So I think that the entire infrastructure needs to be more sensitive to this situation, because as we've done a lot of work of correction to bring women back into, you know, into collections and into the gallery programs and the systems, like with that work, with that correction also needs to be the extension of additional care with regard to this. And that way we won't end up coming to the proverbial end of our rope and, you know.
Yeah, and I also think what you're saying is asking for help. Like there's a stereotype with women, like we need to be strong, we need to be care, we need to do this and this and this and this. And the thing is that, for example, a friend of mine, she gave birth to a beautiful, beautiful daughter, but she actually got a depression after birth and she couldn't actually take care of a child. And then the insecurity of a woman starts. And everybody has an opinion what she needs to do. So we, as like the whole community, need to also figure out how we deal with that, what we think of women when something like that happen, or when we see something just carry their child. Like, how do we stereotype these women or all women? Like, it's not only they, it's all of us.
Yeah, the notion of care is like necessary, because some of the women are not informed sometimes about the situation they are living. And this came sometimes with some situation, if you have like a mother, an aunt, or like a friend who can really help to understand your own situation, giving a birth or not, or like just having conversation with this. Most of these conversations are private, and I would like to thank you to bring them to like not being like just a private conversation between just like women, and just like bring them to publicly, and like this is real situation that a woman artist has to face. I mean, how should I like get birth? Like this period is not okay, but we are unfortunate because we have a clock and we have to deal with it, and we have sometimes to take decisions, as you said, and the decision is like it is sometimes painful to take that decision for not having the time, not having that time, that the society also don't give you that time. And also the art world sometimes is completely non-sensitive to that situation. And sometimes they are just like treating us like the other male artists. Of course, there is like a huge gender issue situation that we have to deal with. So we are like facing many challenges in that case, and I think that we need to move forward, and we still need to like bring that situations and issues like publicly, to start real conversation, and also to start this kind of sorority. But sorority is fine between women, but I think we should also get involved men in that situations, and also in that way somehow, like to make them much more informed about this, because there is like also many sensitive men. I mean, not all of them are not like trying to get abused women artists just to have like an exhibition in that museum or whatever. I've been also having myself a career because a lot of men helped me, like artists, directors, etc. This is like also something very important.
But there are predators.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. For sure, for sure they are. And my notion of feminism is to be like to work with men, not to work against men. And this is also very important to underline in somehow. Yes, this is, yeah. And also just to finish, every day should be a Women's Day, not the 8th March. I always refuse flowers on the 8th March because that's like it's not my day. Why should they? I mean, who decided this? Every day is my day as a woman. So it is important also to scream loud about it. Every day should be a Women's Day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for that comment. And it works. Yeah, I'm a curator, and I'm also 50 and so on. First of all, I just wanted to say that don't feel bad about not having children, because we can take care of other people's children too, and have extended families. Don't always think about your own private individual. Try to enlarge your family. That's my best advice. Also, because there's many children who don't have a good family, they would be happy to have care from the extended family, so to speak. Another thing is, vote for politicians that want to create infrastructure for women, kindergartens, places for support for care, for extended care. It can be private, it can be public, but as long as the politicians that you're voting into your governments are supporting that infrastructure, it's very crucial. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think we have time for one last question, but maybe before, I think it's important. There is a concept that in gender leadership studies is called the double bind that women experience. So the penalization of not being women enough or not being masculine leader enough. So I feel that even this debate around motherhood should be informed by this notion. So to choose not to be a mother, it's still a wonderful choice if it's made in a space of freedom. And I think this is what we are here touching upon, is the system allowing that space of freedom to make slight choices, and maybe sometimes yes, maybe sometimes no, but what strategies can we put in place to create such spaces? And last but not least, on Women's Day, an invitation to look at why it was created. And every day is Women's Day, but if we don't, the fact that we had to start with creating one Women's Day tells you something. So that's also important. Anyone else?
There's someone with the microphone there. Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for an amazing panel and very, very inspiring. I'm Solveig Olsen, I'm from Denmark, and I was holding back a bit because I was raised by a mother who basically was for equal rights in the 70s, and I was like, I think I don't want to, I basically, I'm a curator, so where do I want to start? I was always looking for you guys, basically, you women sitting there. And what I feel is that we are experiencing a revolution where we see women acting and on a level, on a kind of level of contribution to the world that we haven't seen before. I grew up hearing my mom talking about this revolution, having a lot of translators in her, she's a doctor in a clinic, working for Sex and Society, being a joint venture for women internationally. So basically what I'm seeing is that what she's been talking about all my childhood is coming true, and I never thought I would see it happen. So I think the quality that you are delivering in your work and in the depth that you're managing to go with your projects, the things that you manage to talk about with such a clarity that the whole world understands it. There's no deviance, there's no intransparency in what you're saying. That quality is actually demanding the space to work as women, or whether we call it being and empowering and mentoring and giving space and taking space. The quality of the work that I see happening is actually what will also show the men that it's normal that we do what we do. And I just want to say I'm a mother myself, and I curated a show 2 months after I gave birth, and I was standing up with shaking legs, almost giving birth while I had an opening. So I'm one of these crazy people, and I was lucky to find a man who was actually the caring type. And I just want to say we need to normalize that, you know, the value of fathership, that all that they can do and the fun that they can develop, that's actually a huge relief that matches the quality of your work on the world stage at this moment, because we are in a revolution, you know. And so the men actually need to also see what they gain from that. And I just think, you know, my mom gave me a very good advice saying that it's okay to be an okay mom. You don't have to be more.
Hear, hear.
I hope my kid is okay.
All right, thank you everybody for your contributions. I hope we can continue this conversation in the days to come.
Yeah, I think we have to close, unfortunately, but just for now, it's an invitation to continue the conversation. As you've seen, it's rich, it's taking many nuances, and it's not a shy one. So please, let's continue to engage on this topic, and we'll make intentional spaces for us to address this together. And before we close, first of all, any closing remarks from you, and then
I mean, the only thing I'll say is, you know, Lebohang and I were just speaking about, we're like co-creating something like down the street from each other, but not really talking to each other. You know, if we are beginning, we will begin, but I think that also collaboration is important, you know what I mean? And I think these projects, these intentional spaces that we create, we need to fuse our networks to strengthen it, because working in isolation, it can still do great work, but working in collective, with cooperative and collective, is how things can be bigger and you have a greater impact. And so I think we need to be, because these are not vanity projects, you know what I mean? Like they're at intentional spaces being created. And I think I'm excited to talk to you some more, but I think in general, we should be talking more.
So this is just to close the loop.
Yeah, I made a wise thing. Like this is my work. Where's the video?
Yeah, shout out to the AV team. I know
Yeah.
it's high pressure work.
A4, baby.
You'll get it. We're patient.
It's worth it.
Okay, so let me explain something. Was actually the only one in Colombia, Afro-Colombian, and you will actually find them over the whole side of like the Atlantic, also at the Pacific a little bit. And she is singing together with a granddaughter. And we made a project together on like the show Ama la Reina, so the ones I was honoring the social leaders in Colombia. And she made songs for these women. And this is one of the songs that inspired me the most. And like for me, the first time when she was singing for me, I had to cry. You already had to cry too. So like, if you want to tear up, it's good.
Las mujeres de mi tierra son tan bellas como una flor, son berracas y luchadoras, merecen siempre una atracción. Les canto por su dulzura, les canto por su atracción. Las mujeres de mi tierra siempre estará tan con amor. Tenemos oro y platino y mucha diversidad. Explotamos los recursos con la tradicionalidad. Además de la riqueza, tenemos mucha alegría, las cuales representamos con música y chirimía. Ay, salve, salve, salve de Dios, reina y madre, madre de misericordia.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Thank you.